We share. Oh, take a ride with me.
My name is Isah Raphael Ogirima. I am from Kogi State. Okene is my local government, although I was born and raised in Ajaokuta. Ajaokuta is where the Ajaokuta steel plant is at, and that's where I schooled in my early days of schooling. Growing up, I wanted to be a policeman, and that's because we watched all these action movies, the American movies, Hollywood in the early times. We see how dressed these guys were. We see them come in their colored sirens, although they only arrive at the end of the movie when the hero has finished slaying the villain and has gone through all of these problems. But then they looked so smart, and it was only natural for a child to want to become one of these things. But of course, as we grew, I started to change what I wanted to become, right? So my mother was a nurse. I enjoyed seeing her, of course, wear her white uniform and treat people and all of these things. As a matter of fact, she had a reputation for really helping the women in the community. At the time, she served as a wonderful midwife, and of course, we knew, as a matter of fact, that she had that history. She is late now, God rest her soul. You know, so for a long time, I found out that I wanted to succeed her, and this became a thing that I had passion for. Of course, that's not how it turned out. Interesting story and interesting times. In my school days, I wasn't one of the brightest students in class. I was a bit crafty with other things. I was really intelligent on putting other things together. But when it comes to school, you know, when they say he brought the class and his head home, and that's it. I came last most of the time. And although thankfully I never had to repeat a class in my own time, but it was really terrible. One of such days was one where my elder brother, myself, and my younger brother returned from school, and we met a friend of my dad's at home, Alhaji Abdurrahman, God rest his soul too, he's late, you know, and Naira had value at the time, so he gave my elder brother, who came first, he was quite known for that, you know, gave him 50 Naira, and gave my younger brother 10 or 20 Naira, and for me they gave 5 Naira because, of course, I came home with a class on my head, you know, and it was really painful. But then what broke the camel's back was what my dad said afterwards. You know, my dad just made a passing comment and said, you know, Ralph is intelligent, but his problem is play. He plays a lot. You know, I remember that day I got into the room. I got into the bathroom, I looked straight into the mirror, you know, and tears came out of my eyes, and I made a vow to myself at the time. I said, I wasn't going to go to the field to play football anymore until I can surely say that I knew everything in my book. As a matter of fact, the illustration then for me was, if at any point in time anybody sees me in the field, you can stop me, get my school bag, get any book in my bag, open it up and ask me any question randomly from any page. If I cannot answer you, then I shouldn't be in the field. So that was more of a challenge. And of course, that meant that I skipped going in the field to play football with the team. I skipped having to, of course, at this point, I was in my junior secondary school. You know, I skipped having to play table tennis, which is something I was very good at. I believe I'm still good at. You know, and all of that, all of those exuberances I had to put behind. Fast forward from close to last position, in the next term, I came 5th. And I can still clearly remember the remark on my result. I still have that report sheet, I think, you know, where my teacher said, impressive, and she said, the sky is your limit. And my dad saw that day when I came home, and he said, the sky is not your limit. The sky is only your beginning. It's your starting point, you know. And of course, as you'll imagine, I went on from there to, you know, lead first, you know, distinctions and all of these things. That became my own story. That's how I became book smart. And of course, I went on into the senior secondary school and became the head boy of my class. and graduated. After I graduated from secondary school, I, of course, there was this popular computer center in Ajaokuta then called Pesoka. It was a cyber cafe. So I went there and enrolled to intern. So I was there. I was an attendant there. So I was able to help people learn. You know, I was able to guide people on surfing and browsing the internet, and also typesetting and doing some internet or computer business activities. I did that for like a year and a half in wait for admission into the higher institution. Of course, I wanted to be a doctor, so that's in view. And it didn't quite happen. My grades were good. My score was wonderful. JAMB at the time, wonderful, but I didn't get to become a doctor. So what I finally did was to move over from Ajaokuta to Kaduna. And that's, of course, how I came to Kaduna. That's around 2007, thereabout. And when I got here, I decided to start pursuing my admission, of course, in ABU. I spent about 6 years trying to do that. It didn't happen. As a matter of fact, at some point, I'd now reduced my aspirations to pharmacy. I just wanted something in the medical field so that I can feel closer to my mom's, ambition, more like to fulfill something that something that she had been chasing, and it didn't quite work for me. From there, I got down to microbiology. It did not work. It was really, really painful because one of the times, I think there's one time where I was with my uncle here in Kaduna, and then he just told me that he got a call from the Senate there at ABU that I've been shortlisted to be admitted. We're all happy then, but it turned out that when the admission was published, my name was no longer on the list. It was really terrible. It was really painful that day. I remember vividly. My younger brother was around, came in, saw the pain. I was weeping profusely, and he said, worrying will not solve anything. He said those words, and somehow the thing sank, and I dusted myself and got up. And at the time I left, I remember that a friend of mine, an elder friend of mine, just suggested that, why don't you try the polytechnics? And for me, I didn't see why I should. I'd always pride myself that I will go to the best of universities, be in the best of institutions, and all that. As a matter of fact, at some point, I thought I was going to school abroad for my universities, and it didn't quite work out. There was no resource, there was nothing. So after rejecting it and doing all of that, somehow I ended up getting the form, and applied for computer science in Kaduna Polytechnic. And that's how I started to read computer science. It was truly amazing because, of course, as you'll imagine, the whole anger and the frustration I poured into my semester courses, and I graduated with a flying distinction. It was wonderful because most of my courses were always rounded up in an A, not even an AB. I was an A student throughout all the 9-10 courses I did. So we went through all of that process up to the HND, up to the Higher National Diploma in Kaduna Polytechnic. And when I graduated, I got the best students from my set in computer science to, as a matter of fact, start off the Greysoft company. But let's rewind a little bit. Just before I got admission into Kaduna Polytechnic here in Kaduna, I started to work for a real estate firm here in Kaduna just to put my hands together. But again, let's do another rewind. Before then, I tried to work in a hotel as an attendant. There was nothing I did not try to do. I just wasn't the kind of person who would sit down at home, and just wait for things to be done for me or to expect someone to provide something for me. So I went to a hotel, a friend of mine, because I kept telling my friends, even at the barbing salon and places that I went to, that I need a job, whatever it is. I don't care how much you're going to pay. I worked in a business center for a few months, I left there. I said I wanted a job, and they got me this hotel, that this hotel was going to be hiring. They were going to do an aptitude test. So I got there. I was going to do an aptitude test for a hotel, but I was wearing a suit. I got there, we did the test, And by the time we were done, this friend of mine who introduced me to the hotel works there. And you know what? He came to me after a week or 2 weeks when I had to ask him, what's happening? I've not heard anything. And he said that, that they said that I was a spy. A spy, I don't get. And he said that maybe you overpassed the exams or something. And I was like, I don't get it. So, you know, it was really funny, but of course I didn't get the job. Then I now worked at a restaurant. My aunt owned the restaurant just down the road. I worked there and I pounded yam to prepare what the Hausas would call sokora. That's pounded yam. You know, and as a matter of fact, in that local community where I was known as May Sokora, that's the one who does pounded yam. Interesting, yeah. So it was really interesting. Went through all of that phase until I was able to get this job where a real estate firm wanted to hire someone in the computer department who will, of course, come up with valuation reports and do designs, you know, for property sketches and, you know, all the things required for real estate valuations and all. So, of course, I filed in. And they looked at my prior experience. Of course, no certifications yet to really back that up, but all the experiences I had were enough. I was hired and I started to work there. It was from there that I was allowed to school, and I was able to still work in school and do all of these things. All that I went through, though tough, paved an interesting path for me, path that I was able to learn. I was able to learn things that I will today now find useful in the course of my life. So let's fast forward back to where we were. So I graduated from school, hiring the best heads in my department at the time to start off the Graysoft company. That was in 2015. So in 2015, here I was in church, and we had what we call the Word Explosion Conference. That's House on the Rock, Kaduna. By the way, House on the Rock, when I joined in 2010, taught me a lot about excellence. I used to be very unorganized, like I just jump into things and all of that. And House on the Rock taught me to really, when I saw the level of excellence they had there in putting services together, in organizing departments and all of these things, I just caught that spirit straight away, and I began to learn how to really put my best in things and to make the best out of so little. So of course, in 2015, they had the World Explosion Conference where Pastor Dr. Dalla Alfonso came in from Omaha, Nebraska, USA. And then he was teaching where he said something very profound. You know, he said that he comes to Nigeria and he sees opportunities everywhere. You know, he said he walks on the street and he goes to the hotel, and everywhere he looks, he sees opportunities. I was wondering because I was really struggling at the time. You know, and he said the two industries or the two places to look at if you needed opportunities were to consider service and maintenance. You know, and he repeated it over and over again that it's stock, service and maintenance. And he kept saying that, and when I finished that service, I couldn't forget these words. I went and incorporated the Graysoft company, the Graysoft technology company. And as a matter of fact, I became close to him. This man has now become my mentor as far as business is concerned until today. He's still my mentor, you know. So I remember that in 2016, I was speaking to him and I told him, I said, I wanted to leave my job, you know, and focus on this Graysoft company. And he said, no. He said, you can't leave your job. What you have to do is to keep doing that job and manage it until you get to a point where you know, you are unable to hold both of them together, and that's exactly the time to leave. You know, and I took his advice, and that's how I kept managing up until now. Graysoft Technologies has different arms. The first of them is GrayHub. The GrayHub is the part of Graysoft that provides startups with acceleration and incubation. And that means that we basically help people who have ideas move from ideation to an MVP. We also try to set them up so that they can get structure enough to be funded. So we offer them our BDS services, and that's the business development services. We found out that most of the things that MSMEs, that's micro, small and medium enterprise, are lacking is a structure that will make them attractive enough to be funded. So we try to make them structured enough to be funded. So we also look at moving MSMEs to startups, and that's adding the little bit of innovation, to their digital innovation, of course, to their startup. If you know what Amazon was earlier, you know that Amazon, when Jeff Bezos started, was just a book company. It was just him selling books. All right, but he introduced innovation to it, where at the internet, the boom of the internet, where people are able to now buy his books online. And of course, he has developed that into a large online retail store, an e-commerce store, and all of. So these are the things we try to help businesses become, and all of that. So at GreyHub, of course, we also provide co-working space where people, of course, can have access to a workspace, have access to 24-hour electricity, 24-hour internet service, have access to a team, and a lot of other opportunities. That's at GreyHub. At GreyTech, which is another arm of Greysoft Technologies, we are foremost in northern Nigeria as it relates to digital literacy. So we do a lot of training on digital-related courses, as well as build applications for people. So we build a lot of apps, mobile and web apps, and a strong focus for us is emerging technology. So we try to explore the whole aspects of the metaverse. That's virtual reality now, augmented reality, and blockchain technology, and non-fungible tokens, and the list goes on. We have the Grey Create. That's a creative arm of Greysoft, where we take cinematography to another level, and our focus there is the African culture, right? And finally, we have the Grey Academy. Of course, this involves a lot of resource gathering as per learning, and not just in tech now, but also in the creative space. Okay, so these are all the things that we have there. But one really emerging arm of Greysoft is Grey Talents, and that's where we prepare people for works outside the shore of Nigeria, so people can work remotely. We're already signing partnerships with companies in 2 countries, the United States of America and Canada, so that we can get jobs that people here are qualified for and they can do. And this again relates to our dream, and increased access to digital opportunities, so that people can work from here abroad. They don't have to find a way to Japa to run out of the country, like they say. But from here, they can access opportunities and work. So these are the things that Greysoft does. Dala Alfonso started a program called the Private Transformation Network. And wonderfully, that program helped me understand myself and to be transformed into the best version of myself, as that's the aim. For me, finding my purpose and my reason of existence was a tough one. But the clarity that brought is what has helped me up until now. My purpose, as I've discovered from the Private Transformation Network, is to help people leverage technology to improve their lives. That has transformed into the mission of Greysoft. The vision of Greysoft Technologies is an increased access to digital opportunities in Africa. So our focus is the African continent. All of the disappointments I've seen in life had found a way to really build me into the person that I am. All the struggles I've had, all the ups and downs, have found a way to build a strong person out of me. And that takes me to a very key and anchoring scripture, in Romans, that says, all things work together for the good of them that love God. And I strongly believe in the scripture also that says that the steps of a just man is ordered of the Lord. And I have continued to walk, in this path over time, and I've seen God come through for me in ways I have not imagined. As I speak to you now, on monthly basis, on hourly basis, people walk in to contribute heavily to my life's journey. We launched the Grey Hub this year in January, and Grey Hub has grown to be one of the most successful innovation hubs in northern Nigeria. At Grey Hub, we basically incubate businesses, incubate startups, and accelerate them. We also provide a wonderful co-work space for people. We see our hub as a workspace that inspires people. And we get these reviews from state governments and from really high-ranking people who come to use our space to do their work. I couldn't have been all this if I had not if I had not stayed true to my path. I couldn't have been all this if I had given up when things were tough. The saying goes that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. I believe that most young people today are to find a way to be resilient. If you have a dream that is truly worthwhile, it will test you. That's the truth. But then, if you fail, then you are not worthy of that dream. The proof of your worthiness is your ability to succeed when the going gets tough, right? There's going to be tribulation, there's going to be trial, there's going to be testing. And this whole thing, like I said, is testing whether or not you're worthy of what you're asking for. Okay? Somewhere in the Bible, scripture says that if you fall in the days of adversity, your strength is little. And these are the things. Life will test you. Everything will test you. But if you stand, you will indeed become the very person that you are trying to be. So this is my story. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.